Welcome to Shit You Wish Your Building Did, the must-watch show for transforming your commercial spaces into smart buildings. Today, we're diving into the world of indoor air quality with Mazen Jamal. What is the business case for indoor air quality technology? Is it fair to judge air quality technology purely on return on investment, or should it be seen in the wider context of wellness? So stick around for this insightful conversation. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest episodes. Ready to transform your building with smart technology? Let's jump right in. Mazen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, James.
Real pleasure to have you.
I've been a fan of yours since 2018.
Oh,
so
very kind.
Yeah, it's surreal that I'm here.
Wow, cool. Well, I've been following, your writing, and I think it's super interesting as well. And I know, especially, I'm interested in your thoughts and opinions on indoor air quality, and that's something I know you've professionally has been something you've been working on for a few years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What I try to bring to the table when it comes to my experience in air quality is not purely the scientific, because there's a lot of excellent bespoke people such as Dr. Joseph Allen speaking from a medical perspective. What we're trying to bring in is just bringing the world of indoor air quality and the business aspect of it. Exactly.
And that's actually today what I want to focus on, right? Because I think, podcasts that I've listened to, I think it's pretty well, we're not trying to do an indoor air quality 101 today, right?
Absolutely.
And for those that want to go and see it, I think there's a lot of good scientific research on why, for example, CO2 levels impact cognitive function within people and workforce. And I think the science on that is pretty well understood at this point, right?
Exactly.
So, as I said, we're going to focus more on the business aspects of it. And I think, from my perspective, doing what we do in researching smart building technology, where do you see indoor air quality fit into that landscape? And also why, my sense, again, I could be wrong on this, but that often indoor air quality is seen as like a nice to have, right? As opposed to, number one on the list of things that you want in your smart building technology stack.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think definitely indoor air quality falls under it's a nice to have, not a need to have. And the reason is accountability and consequences. So when you think about anything you want to put inside of your building, it either needs to be a necessity or an obligation. So you need to have carbon monoxide sensors. You need to have, security alarms. You're not allowed to have a license to open up your building without those, right? So there are consequences to not abiding by those. And then there's the other stuff that falls under nice to have, but they're also universally accepted as must to have, such as a coffee machine. So it's not a must have by law. There's no consequences of not having a coffee machine in the office, yet there is no office without a coffee machine. So there are consequences to that. The people would be pissed off, angry, they need their coffee fix. So you do not think twice about investing in good coffee or a coffee machine, yet by law you're not obliged to. So indoor air quality falls in that it's not obliged by law. It's not accepted by employees as a necessity to have. So it falls between the tables in the gray area as it is important, but whether we do something about it or not, nothing's going to change. Our employees are going to come to the office. The government is not going to fine me. How does it really affect me? And that's the wrong way of assessing what is indoor air quality, but that's the way it's perceived in the market today.
At the moment, right.
Yeah.
And sort of following on from that, so someone who is, let's say writing the check for the technology that's going to go in, and in their mind, like you said, they're thinking of all of those technologies that they have to have, obliged to have, right? There's that's done. They have to have that. Then they're assessing, let's say, the nice to haves. And indoor air quality sensing and monitoring, right, and analytics falls somewhere in that space. And I suppose a lot of those technologies then will be assessed based on return on investment or the perceived value to the company or the employee. Yeah. Is it really fair to assess indoor air quality on return on investment? And sort of where do you think it sits within that group of technologies?
I'm a strong believer that to purely box indoor air quality as what is the return on investment is like saying what is north of the North Pole. It kind of defies itself. The North Pole is the North Pole. There is no beyond the North Pole. And when you're saying what is the return on investment of health and well-being, it kind of like, you're answering it in the question. You're saying, why is it important to care about the health and well-being? Well, you're saying the answer, it is, you should care about health and well-being. But today, when you remove indoor air quality and you make it standalone, it just kind of feels unfulfilling. It's like you go to a good pancake place and you're like, here you go, one slice of pancake on your plate. And you're going to just kind of look at it and you're like, wow, it just doesn't look that appetizing. So the future of indoor air quality within the sphere of smart buildings, we're not talking about the sphere of ventilation, is the value it brings to the table is when it's combined with other pancakes. So when there's a slice of space utilization and occupancy, there's a slice on data and cloud analytics, visitor management, energy optimization, and indoor air quality, it fits. So when you're trying to put a strategy on indoor air quality, it makes much more sense to put a strategy around smart buildings that has an indoor air quality aspect than a standalone, just because it makes more sense. And then it affects the other aspects. So you consume energy based on how many people you have in the building. So space utilization and occupancy affect your energy. And the biggest energy consumption in the building is the ventilation, heating and cooling. So basically, the indoor air quality affects most your energy consumption. So they're interrelated. Yeah. And if you take one, you're just kind of like reading a third of a book. So to read the full story, you need to look at the, quoting my friend Rupert Lane, the Holy Trinity of PropTech, which is space utilization and occupancy, energy optimization, and indoor air quality. So when you put them all together, it makes more sense, it's richer, and it's easier to not kind of shrug it off as, I don't want to put my money into air quality. Because you're not investing in air quality, you're investing in a smart building technology. Yes, okay.
And I mean, I think to draw those relationships with ventilation, heating, cooling, absolutely, right? Because part of the same story, 100%. And I think, air quality fits into the whole wellness picture. You mentioned health, right? So, I mean, as I understand it, right, it's a big part of, for example, the world standard.
Absolutely.
How important is that to, I guess it's not, it's not my specialist subject, but like, is that something I've heard a lot about, but is that something that is definitely on the map, the radar of building owners and operators?
As in the healthy building aspect?
The WELL standard.
Absolutely. So when it comes to the WELL Building Institute and WELL as a standard, there was a massive adoption of healthy buildings in COVID because people didn't want to come to the office. Sure, valid reason, but company owners and asset owners wanted to make it more safe, if you want to call it. And they don't want to claim that it's good. They want third-party validation. And that's where WELL came in at the right place at the right time. It's a third-party validation, albeit it's proven. So it's not a gimmick. It is well proven. It is proper. There is a methodology to it. It's just from a business use case, it was the right place at the right time. and it generated massive awareness to the importance of healthy buildings, which is great. So that is great for the industry. But today it just feels like the hype of healthy buildings has a bit subsided versus energy optimization, for example. And when we look at it, so let's take it from a macro and micro perspective. The world used to be very siloed, as in countries. So basically the UK is the UK, it takes its own decisions, and Germany, and Japan. We're suddenly interrelated. So what happens in Japan affects what happens in the UK, and our decisions are collective. So when it comes to what we want to do to implement a strategy to optimize, we look at the whole macro world of what is happening around us. And from there, we extrapolate strategies to adopt and say, this is what we're going to do to improve our health and well-being. And when it comes to indoor air quality, and when it comes to the world, there are major problems today in the world when it comes to energy. There's a lot of change in direction towards renewable, sustainable energy. There's a lot of focus on reducing your energy bill, and it's happening today. The spotlight was on indoor air quality in COVID. It was like, we really don't care about how much we consume energy. We need to live through the storm. Today, it's like the final boss, if it's a video game, is energy. So that's taking all the attention globally. And when you see all other companies looking at that, there's more technologies being driven, created towards solving that problem. So there's less direction towards healthy buildings. But I think that just like we will always care about our health and well-being, healthy buildings will never die. It's just slow in taking up adoption. It's just going to continue being the sidekick to Batman.
Yeah, okay. So, we're on this kind of, I suppose you can almost like hype cycle, right?
Yeah.
Where energy is taken over. I know it's like you mentioned macroeconomics. I mean, I guess there's several reasons for that, but also one being that, like, I think after COVID, like, people just don't want to be reminded of that anymore, right? No. Like, they want to move on, and now we've got issues around like having too much space in some parts of commercial real estate. So yeah. But as you said, it's not going away. It's still going to be there as an issue.
Absolutely. I definitely think so. And I can see more and more change in rules and regulations and discussions around making it more mandatory. I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of years you're going to see that indoor air quality monitoring is ubiquitous in new buildings such as carbon monoxide and fire alarms.
Yeah.
It's a future that definitely is likely to happen because it's not that difficult. What's difficult today is taking old buildings and just kind of retrofitting them.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's no technologies, but people are weary of that. But if you were to move into a new building and it does have all these bells and whistles, part of it, then you're more likely to accept it. And that just eventually irons out all the old buildings in years to come, and then suddenly everything is smart.
Yeah, because I mean, you mentioned earlier about carbon monoxide. I mean, that's something that is mandated, right? We have to measure that in a building. We're not far away there from then measuring other types of stuff that's in the air anyway, right? So it's not that much of a stretch to think that we'll start also mandating measurement of other stuff.
A lot of buildings do already monitor temperature and humidity, for example. It's monitored pretty efficiently in a lot of buildings. CO2 is becoming more and more available. I would say VOCs. So the 5 usual suspects of indoor air quality are temperature, humidity, which are the thermal comfort aspects. Then CO2, which is the cognitive skills and concentration aspect. And then there's the health aspects, which are VOCs and PM 2.5s. Now, those two are rarely monitored. You can walk into tons of buildings and see that they're monitoring temperature, humidity. A lot CO2. But PMs and VOCs, it's kind of a niche thing. And eventually the technology is going to get better, cheaper, and it's going to start being adopted in buildings just like CO2 and temperature and humidity sensors.
Yeah, okay. One of the things I wanted to do today was also to kind of talk about, we said the business model, right? But also like advice for people, right, about implementing it. Like, so in your opinion, what is like a cost-effective way of doing indoor air quality for those that want to do it?
I'd say the number one fear about adopting an indoor air quality strategy is, what is my strategy? The monitoring side is the easy part. There's a lot of excellent solutions out there that can monitor and send the data seamlessly up to the cloud. So gathering information of what you need to do is easy. It's the what I need to do which scares many people. It scares them in multiple aspects. So, for example, you get the buildings that are old and have natural ventilation, so there's no ventilation system. That scares them. They're like, oh my God, but I can't do anything about it. I don't have any systems. My building's old. And then there's the part where we have systems, but we don't know what to do about it. Then there's the people that have BMS and say, look, I have a BMS. It can solve all my problems. But, well, it's kind of like, it's something that it's there, but it's not always working correctly. And then there's the demystifying of analyzing what is air quality, what is good air quality. So it's not like, all right, so let us compare the other aspects of smart building, the big ones. So when we look at energy, right, you're consuming X amount of megawatts or kilowatts, right? You adopt a strategy and then you can monitor it, and now you see a delta positive or a delta negative, right? If I do this, I consume more power. If I do that, I consume less power. So analyzing what the data means is easy. It's very binary. When you look at space utilization and occupancy, it's either binary, occupied or not. So this room is occupied, right? Or that room is empty. So it's empty. So it's not occupied. It's easy to interpret what is it. Or it's percentile. So there's 30% occupancy on this floor. When it comes to air quality, there's 450 ppm of CO2 with low humidity, high levels of PMs, and then you can combine a lot of different variations of these five, forget all the other hundreds of VOCs, and people are like overwhelmed with what they need to do. So if we were to take a cheat sheet and kind of simplify this, right? The biggest concern are CO2s and VOCs and PM 2.5s, right? Because temperature, it's easy to understand. There's a lot of people know, it's too hot or too cold, too humid or not. Right? So when it comes to CO2, the biggest problem in CO2 are meeting rooms. So you put two people, just like us, in a meeting room, and they're having a long conversation, and they're breathing, the doors are locked, and the ventilation is poor, so the CO2 starts creeping up, and we start feeling it. So we have built-in sensors in our body that tell us, right, I'm flabbergasted, I'm sweating, I can't breathe, So it's easy just by when you're monitoring, just to put some kind of alarm. Doesn't need to be sound alarm. It could be a visual alarm, or it could be an SMS or a message type, or a Slack message even, right? You just get a message, CO2 is too high, right? Take a coffee break, 5 minutes. Just open the door, go out, grab a fresh cup of coffee for 5 minutes, come back, and the CO2 would have subsided. So you don't need to connect to a BMS and ventilation system. You should, right? But if you don't have it and you're scared, it's an easy strategy. When it comes to PMs, you need to understand, if the doors are open, the windows are open, then you're getting PMs from somewhere, right? You close them, you don't get them. So there are easier strategies to do that. An interesting use case that I worked once on is looking at temperature over 24 hours. So it's such a simple methodology to understand that you are over consuming power. So let's just say you're trying to maintain a good 19 degrees Celsius inside the office. And then you leave on Friday and you come on Monday and you look at the graph and it shows that it's 19 degrees after you've left on Saturday morning, on Sunday, and it's flat 19. It's like, okay, something's wrong here. Why are we cooling our office for 24/7? And by just switching off, so imagine like you're consuming power 24/7 instead of 8 hours a day or 9 hours a day for 5 days a week. So you're talking about more than 50% over the limit. Just by looking at your temperature data, you can see that anomaly, and you can just go down to your facilities team and say, fix it, right? It's their job. They know how to do that. Just change the program on the BMS. But sometimes people think that it's working, but it's not really.
Yep, good stuff. So also more advice in that, okay, so that's the kind of like the business case. That's how you can, you can think of it within the context of different environments. But what about like, as someone who wants to implement it within the organization, how can you sell indoor air quality like within the organization?
A lot of times what people get stuck on is the bill, right? That's it, right?
It's going to cost something.
It's going to cost something. So the first thing is like, right, you're doing a lot of things, which is great. I mean, we understand that it's important, but how much is it going to cost us? And that's what people get stuck on. So there's that perception that it's expensive. There's two misconceptions here. So the first misconception is, if we found out they have bad air quality, it means we need to consume more power to fix it. So there's that misconception that I'm consuming more power to fix my air quality that goes against my sustainability goals. But the reality is, majority of time, the air quality in the office is pretty good. It's when you need it to be good that it's not. So those are the times where you need to consume more power, but a lot of times you need to consume less power. So the overall, you're going to consume less power. So that's the first myth. The second one is that it's expensive. So I made a study analysis once, which is we compared how much it costs to have unlimited cup of coffee in an office, which was an average of around 48 pounds per employee per year. Per month, sorry.
British pounds?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That's British pounds. So that's a coffee machine, beans, servicing, water, all the stuff needed for it, right? It's going to cost around 48 pounds per month.
And which is something like
no
one would probably complain. No
one thinks about it.
Yeah, right.
No one thinks about it. And then when you take how much it costs you to put sensors to monitor your indoor air quality per employee, it costs less than £1 per month per employee. And when you put it this way, and you tell someone, tell me it's expensive, and it's not. But when kind of people look at it just a lump sum, so it's going to cost us £50,000 or £100,000 or £1 million if we're doing a global rollout, right? But when you break it down by buildings, by floors, by employees, it's really nothing. It's really, really cheap. But the problem is we're selling it incorrectly. We need to sell it correctly for people to accept it.
Right. Because it's the perception that it's, I wouldn't even think that there's probably a perception out there that it's expensive. I think the perception is probably that it's more work, right? Yeah. There's something else that they've got to do and they've got enough on their plate, but also that it's, just something that isn't really important because there's not enough understanding about it.
There is that shrug off that, again, we go back to the first question. It's labeled as a nice to have thing, right? And once you break down a lot of the walls around it of complexity, it starts becoming an easier pill to swallow, right? Even if it stays within the realm of nice to have, but if it's so simple and seamless, a lot of people will be willing to try it, and then from there start building strategies around it, and from there start seeing tangible results. But when it's complex and perceived as expensive and perceived as it's a headache, you're putting too many obstacles So you need to remove as many obstacles as possible. And then from there, even nice to have things can be adopted at scale.
Yes, exactly. And you kind of mentioned before, like about viewing it in this context of other kind of services.
Yeah.
Do you, I mean, I think this is probably happening already, but I mean, selling that as a package, is that something that, you know, we're going to probably see more of? Do you think that there are going to be more companies rolling up services to offer as a package, kind of trying to simplify things? Like I think with a lot of technology, it's not easy to sell sometimes, but it can be too complicated selling process.
I think the power to make a difference is in the master system integrators, such as the Schneiders and Honeywells and Bosch and JCIs of the world. Because when you look at the individual prop tech companies out there trying to sell separate solutions, separate data clouds, separate security stacks, subscription, so software as a service, front ends, and you look at the plethora of use cases you can add to a smart building, it is definitely overwhelming. So when you get an easy picking, such as indoor air quality, it's the first you throw out the window. Just because, all right, there's so much to do. We don't know where to start. But the big system integrators, they have the power to combine them all as a one solution. So you can get someone like Schneider going into a building saying, I'll take care of everything for you. You pay me one subscription, one integration, one front end, one security protocol, all the data combined, and we can bring the power of all of these different use cases. And then we can see links between them that you couldn't see by looking each stack separately. So I think that the future lies within the big system integrators, not the small ones.
Interesting. Thanks. Before we go, I wanted to ask you, I always try and end with this. Is there one thing you want to, one point, one topic you want people to take away from this conversation today?
If I was to help people understand indoor air quality, just to kind of simplify it in a manner, I'll go back a couple of million years ago, and I there's this story that I love. It's a thought experiment that I came up with. So you get this caveman in the cave, dark, cold, scared, hungry. And then there's just one lucky genius caveman discovers fire. Just grabs this stick back to his cave, and he's like, now I can stay warm, safe from beasts. I can cook on it. It keeps me safe. And it's the best thing ever. A couple of minutes later, he starts coughing, and his internal air quality sensors are flaring up. It's like, what is this? I can't take the smoke. I'm suffocating, but I don't want to throw away this magical invention. I want to keep the power of fire, but it contradicts with my lifestyle. And that pushed humans to leave caves, become hunters-gatherers. Because in the open spaces, there's no suffocation from carbon monoxide. So to me, it just feels like indoor air quality is as old as mankind. And we have all these built-in sensors that keep us safe and alarm us when something is wrong. Now they've affected our progress and evolution. So when you think about air quality, it's a lot more native to us than oh, it's a new trend. That's just the story that I find to be fascinating.
Yeah, because I mean, some people might think it just came along.
Yeah, it's a
4
new
years
thing.
ago during COVID. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. No, great anecdote. Love it. Mazen, thank you so much for joining me, and really appreciate you taking the time. It was a very interesting discussion.
Thank you, James.
If people want more information about what you do and what you write about, I mean, you're very active on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
Is that
and
the
you
best
can
place?
reach out to me on LinkedIn, reach out to the message or via email. More than happy to help anyone.
Great. I'll make sure we put the link in
Cool.
in the description.
Awesome.
Thanks again.
Thank you, James.
Bye-bye.